on 9th Avenue and 35th Street, the place I've called home for the last 6 years. That's the deli where I get most of my groceries. And this is my building. I walk up 8th Avenue every single day, where I catch the subway on my way to work. This neighborhood is one of the busiest traveled in the city. One, because we have Penn Station, and the Lincoln Tunnel, and there's also Port Authority. Although this area used to be known as the Garment District, it's home to much more now, such as Madison Square Garden, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and the largest post office in the world. And sex shops. On 8th Avenue between 14th and 50th Streets, there are 17 sex shops, and that's not counting those that are on the side streets.
I taste the darkness in your eyes. I'm heading to the city of love, blue city of love.
I've always wondered why there's such a high concentration of sex shops in a neighborhood that has such a high HIV rate. So, I asked the director of Hope's Voice what he thought.
Well, I mean, if the sex shops are geared towards the gay community and we're addressing that specific community, I think it's geared towards that community because this community is a lonely community. I think that, I think they're looking for something, and I think that a lot of people who grew up gay felt denied the chance to really experience what their peers were, whether it was like a high school prom or a lot of what was normal when they were growing up weren't experienced. And so I think a lot of times there's this need to get it all done and not just stick with one person because they're trying to make up for lost time. So you have like a factor of like being with a lot of people. You have a community that is lonely, and you have a community that in a lot of ways isn't a community. And so I think those people in these places continue to stay open and do business because it's an outlet and it's a place for people to feel connected. I think that the gay community just doesn't feel connected to each other. And whether it's, a quarter or a dollar for 10 minutes, I mean, it's more than just getting off. It's about feeling like you're part of something.
So with all the flashing lights and the decorations in the window, I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. So I went inside one.
I can't sit here and say why it makes sense because it doesn't. Like, it doesn't make sense why the establishments are open, given we all know what's going on. It's not a logical thing for them. It doesn't make sense to me. So, I think that if anyone who's doing that should be held accountable, and I think it's important, I think sex is great and I think it's a good thing for everyone to have. I think there needs to be balance. And the problem is that if you're going to encourage someplace with sex, you need to balance it out with education. I mean, that's a socially responsible thing to do. And as a community, we have to call social responsibility. And I think that's something that we've lost. It's okay as long as we can pay the bills and as long as it's not our life that's being affected. It's some hustler who's having a hard time that may get HIV, but that doesn't matter. It's like he's a member of the community and we should care just as much about him as we do someone else. So if that takes us getting angry and getting uncomfortable to close what's below us, then I think we should be mad enough to do it.
So what can one do to change their community from flashing lights to living trees? Do we ban sex shops, or do we regulate them and the activities that go on inside? And is it up to the community or the state?
I think that being an HIV and AIDS educator and advocate, it's crazy to me that they're still open. I mean, it's kind of like 2 + 2 = 5. Clearly, it doesn't add up. You know, it's the fact that this community has been the #1 infected and affected by HIV and AIDS, which is spread through sex, by #1 in this community. And the fact is, when you go to a sex shop, you have a higher risk of contracting HIV. And so, you know, whether they are there and they continue to stay open because they have customers, me as an advocate for community education doesn't understand why. I think that we can keep on having shifts of priorities. I think right now there's a whole lot more than just the basis of protecting yourself for not getting HIV. I mean, that's what I think is lost in prevention work, is that there's self-esteem and respect and community and communication. I mean, like, all of those play a factor in becoming HIV positive, but yet, you know, those can be equally as important as using the condom, learning to communicate, learning to love yourself so you don't put yourself at risk when you shouldn't. So I think it's interesting, because I think we've learned, and I think most young people know to use a condom, but I think we have to get smarter and better than that.